So good day to each and everyone. I am Christine N. S. Okoy and I will be discussing the Adlerian therapy. So in Adler's kind of therapy, he emphasizes personality unity and arguing that humans can only be grasped as integrated and complete creatures. This viewpoint also promotes the purposefulness of behavior, emphasizing that where we came from is not as essential as where we want to go. So humans, according to Adler, are both the creators and the creations of their own lives. That is, people build a distinct way of life that is both a journey toward a manifestation of their chosen goals. So in this way, rather than being formed by our formative or childhood experiences, we make ourselves as to what we want. Alfred Adler, together with Freud, was a key figure in the early development of the psychodynamic therapy approach. After 8 to 10 years of partnership, Freud and Adler split up, with Freud believing Adler was a heretic who had deserted him. In 1911, Adler resigned as president of the Vienna Psychoanalytic Society, and in 1912, he established the Society for Individual Psychology. Later, a number of prominent psychoanalysts disagreed with Freud's orthodoxy. These Freudian revisionists, who included Karen Horney, Erich Fromm, and Harry Stack Sullivan, recognized that relational, social, and cultural elements played a significant role in personality formation. So, according to Heinz Ansbacher of 1979, the three therapists are now called neo-Adlerians because they moved away from Freud's biological and deterministic view of human nature and moved toward Adler's social, psychological, and teleological or goal-oriented view of human nature. So, as Adler passed away in the year 1937, the most significant figure in bringing Adlerian psychology to the US was made by Rodolph Dreckers. He extended Adler's principles that applied in education, individual and group therapy, and family constellation to the US. And Dreckers is credited with the encouragement to the idea of child guidance centers and to training professionals to work with a wide range of clients. So Adler demonstrated his key concepts, which is the view of human nature, subjective perception of reality, unity and pattern of human personality, social interest in community feeling, and birth order and sibling relationships. So first is the view of human nature. Adler left the theories of Freud because he believed that Freud was excessively narrow in his emphasis on biological and instinctual determination. For Adler, in his key concept, which is the view of human nature, he believed that the individual begins to form an approach to life somewhere in the first 6 years of living. He concentrated on how the past was interpreted in the present by the individual and how this continued to affect how they behave in the present. So humans are primarily driven by social connections rather than sexual drives. Action is deliberate and goal-directed, and consciousness rather than unconsciousness is the focus of treatment, that is according to Adler. So meaning their individual and distinct childhood experiences, their personal challenges, and the populations with whom they worked were the key factors in their development in the views of human nature. So another factor is Adler's theory starts with the consideration of inferiority feelings. Inferiority feelings can be the wellspring of creativity. So, rather daw, gina-consider ang inferiority feelings as sign na ang isang tao ay may weakness or abnormality. Ang inferiority feelings daw is, ito siya yung parang wellspring or a source of a continual supply of creativity. So, with this, the inferiority feelings encourage us to work toward completion, achievement, or success, or so-called superiority and mastery. So we are motivated to overcome our inferiority complex and go toward ever higher degrees of growth. So in fact, our fictional vision of ourselves as flawless or complete starts to take the shape of a life goal around the age of 6. So every effort to overcome inferiority is now aligned with this goal, which unifies the personality and serves as the source of human drives. And next is Adlerians put the focus on re-educating individuals and reshaping society. since we have the capacity to influence, interpret, and create events, Adler asserted that genetics and hereditary are not significant with the abilities we possess. So he was the founder of holistic, social, goal-oriented, systemic, and humanistic method of thinking. So Adler was the first systemic therapist and advocated for the idea that it is crucial to understand individuals within the context of the systems in which they exist. So now let us proceed to the next concept, which is the subjective perception of reality. Under this, Adlerian's attempt to view the world from the client's subjective frame of reference. So, an orientation described as phenomenological. So, in this concept, paying attention is to how each person sees the world, or what is known as subjective reality. So, with this, it involves taking into account the person's perceptions, thoughts, feelings, values, beliefs, convictions, and conclusions. On to the second from the last key concept, which is the unity and pattern of human personality. So Adler chose the name individual psychology for his theoretical approach because he wanted to avoid reductionism. So Adler highlighted the person's unity and indivisibility and the need of understanding the full person in the context of his or her life. He also emphasized how all aspects of a person are interrelated parts that are brought together by the individual's progress toward a life goal. So, under this is the holistic concept, which implies that we cannot be understood in parts. Rather, all aspects of ourselves must be understood in relationship. It means that a person's individuality is shown through their thoughts, feelings, convictions, attitudes, character traits, and behaviors, which together reveal a life strategy that enables progress toward a self-selected life goal. The client is a fundamental component of a social system, which is a consequence of this comprehensive perspective of personality. Interpersonal interactions are prioritized over a person's internal psychodynamics. So, under the unity and pattern of human personality is behavior as purposeful and goal-oriented. So, individual psychology assumes that all human behavior has a purpose. So, a fundamental tenet of individual psychology is that we can only think, feel, behave in connection to our objectives. We can only be completely comprehended or understood in the context of the purposes and goals we are working towards. Next is many Adlerians use the term fictional finalism to refer to an imagined life goal that guides a person's behavior. So the guiding self-ideal is an individual's perception of a goal of perfection for which he or she strives in any given situation. So Adler stopped using this term and substituted guiding self-ideal or goal of perfection in its place to explain our striving for superiority or perfection. So we have the creative capacity to decide what we will accept as true, how we will behave, and how we will interpret events since we have a subjective final goal. Next is striving for significance and superiority. So Adler stressed that the recognition of inferiority feelings and the consequent striving for perfection or mastery are innate, meaning it is within us. So understanding the concepts of fundamental inferiority and compensation is crucial to understanding human behavior. So we got to understand our helplessness early on, which is marked by emotions of inadequacy. So this deficiency does not have detrimental effect on life. Adler contends that the desire for greatness pulls us the instant we feel inferior. So the pursuit of supremacy aids the growth of the human community. So it is crucial to remember that Adler does not necessarily imply supremacy over other people when he uses the word superiority. So this means that moving from a perceived worse position to a perceived better position is what it is meant. Next is lifestyle. So the movement from a felt minus to a desired plus results in the development of a life goal, which in turn unifies the personality and the individual's core beliefs and assumptions. So the terms plan of life, style of life, strategy for living, and roadmap of life are all synonyms for these concepts, which refer to the unifying themes and social norms that provide significance to human behavior. So it encompasses a person's distinctive manner of thinking, acting, and feeling, life, and pursuing long-term goals. So Adler viewed us as artists, writers, and performers. According to Adler, who was mentioned in this passage, we may begin wherever we choose. Every expression will bring us in the same direction toward the one motive, the one melody around which the personality is created. So another key concept is the social interest of community feeling. Social interest and community feeling, or the Gemeinschaftgefühl, are probably Adler's most significant and distinctive concepts. So these words allude to people's knowledge of their place in the human family and their attitudes towards interacting with others on a social level. So social interest includes factors such as helping, participating, respect, cooperating, empathy, contributing, and encouraging. So it becomes a mediating factor that provides for the reconciliation of the individual's internal, personal, subjective environment or frame of reference with the demands of the person's external, common, objective environment or surroundings. So the socialization process associated with social interest starts in childhood and involves assisting children in finding their place in society, developing a sense of belonging, and having the capacity to contribute. And social interest is the action line of one's community feeling and entails being as concerned about others as one is about in oneself. So community feeling encapsulates the sense of belonging to all of humanity, uh, even past, present, and future, and of taking part in improving the world. So Adler thought that we must successfully master the three universal life tasks, which is building the friendships, which is the social task, establishing intimacy, or the love marriage task, and the contributing to society, or the occupational task. So we also have the key concept, the last key concept, which is the birth order and sibling relationship. So the Adlerian approach is unique in giving special attention to the relationships between siblings and the psychological birth position in one's family. So birth order is not a deterministic concept, but does not increase an individual's probability of having a certain set of experiences. So as with everything in Adler's system, birth order should be understood and viewed in the context of a person's own family, community, and universe. So these 5 birth order positions and the potential patterns represent the point of view from which the child sees the world. So a child's subjective interpretation is what really matters regarding birth order, not the position itself, because birth position is uniquely defined by the person. So although siblings share aspects in common in the family constellation, the psychological situation of each child is different from that of the others due to birth order. So we have the oldest child, the second child, middle child, the youngest child, and the only child. First is the oldest child. So the oldest child receives a lot of attention, and because he is the only child, he is usually treated a little spoiled because she or he is the focus of the attention. He tends to be trustworthy, diligent, and driven to be on top. He is, however, demoted from his preferred position when a new brother or sister enters the picture. He is no longer remarkable or one of a kind. He can be quick to think that the stranger will deprive him of the love he is used to receiving. He often reasserts his dominance by acting like a role model, commanding respect from younger sibling, and displaying a strong desire for success. Next is the second child. So she is given shared attention with another child from the moment she is born. The average second child acts as though she's competing and is typically on full throttle at all times. It seems as though the younger sibling or brother is being prepared to be surpassed by the second child. So the first two kids' rivalry has an impact on how their lives would turn out later. So the younger kid gains the ability to identify the elder child's areas of weaknesses and goes on to impress parents and teachers by succeeding where the older child has failed. So if one possesses aptitude in a certain area, the other aspires to be recognized by mastering other skills. So the second child is frequently the opposite of the first child. So we also have the middle child. The middle child feels squeezed out frequently. This child could learn to believe that life is unfair and feel deceived. This person could develop a poor me mentality and turn into a troubled youngster. So the middle child, particularly in homes where there is strife, may end up serving as the peacemaker and communicator, keeping the family together. So in a family of four, the second kid will frequently feel like the middle child, while the third will be more laid back and sociable and may even resemble the firstborn. And next is the youngest child. The youngest child is often the most pampered member of the family since he is always the baby. He may learn to turn helplessness into an art form and become skilled at using people as his servants as a result of being spoiled or pampered. The youngest children typically follow their own paths, growing in ways that no one else in the family has tried and sometimes outshining everyone. The youngest often conclude that he or she is either special or unwanted. So the pampered youngest child feels special and is spoiled and overindulged, whereas the unwanted child feels neglected, disliked, and ignored. We have the only child. The only child may not learn to share or collaborate with other kids, although having some of the traits of the oldest child, which such as high drive for accomplishment, the adults may make up his first family milieu. He will learn how to interact effectively with them. Because he receives so much attention from his parents, the only child is frequently dependent on one or both of them. He could always want to be on the spotlight, so if his dominance is questioned, he can feel unfairly treated. So, how people interact in the world is heavily influenced by birth order and how one interprets their place in the family. In childhood, people develop a certain way of connecting to others and create a clear self-image that they continue into adult encounters. Working with family dynamics, particularly sibling relationships, takes center stage in Adlerian therapy. Although it's vital to avoid generalizing other people, it may be useful to understand how certain personality characteristics that develop as a result of sibling rivalry in infancy affect people throughout their lives. So we are now done with the key concepts. Let us now proceed to the therapeutic process. So one of the under the therapeutic process is the therapeutic goals. So the therapy method often entails building a relationship based on mutual respect, conducting a comprehensive psychological inquiry or lifestyle evaluation, and exposing incorrect expectations and erroneous assumptions about a person's way of life. So the client is then re-educated or reoriented toward the positive aspects of life. So the main aim of therapy is to develop the client's sense of belonging and to assist in the adoption of behaviors and processes characterized by the community feeling and social interest. So Adlerians prefer the development model of personality above the medical paradigm and do not see their patients as being ill and needing to be treated. So the main goals of counseling are to enlighten, educate, mentor, and encourage individuals who are feeling down. So the most effective strategy for altering someone's views and encouragement since it fosters bravery and self-confidence in the client. Adlerians educate clients in new ways of looking at themselves, others, and life. So counselors assist them in changing their perceptions. According to Mossack and Magnacci of 2011, these are the lists of goals for the educational process of therapy. First is fostering social interest, helping clients overcome feelings of discouragement and inferiority, modifying clients' views and goals that is changing their lifestyle. Next is changing faulty motivation, encouraging the individual to recognize equality among people, and lastly, helping people to become contributing members of society. Another therapeutic process is the therapist's function and role. So these therapists operate on the assumption that clients will feel and behave better once they discover and correct their basic mistakes. So therapists frequently search for serious errors in judgment such as distrust, selfishness, unattainable goals, and lack of confidence. So Adlerians have a non-pathological stance and do not diagnose their clients with pathological conditions. The work of Adlerian therapists might be seen as one in which they help patients better comprehend, confront, and alter their life story. So the objective is to liberate people from a favored and equally valid alternative tale when they build a life story that they find constricting and problem saturated. Next is a major function of the therapist is to make a comprehensive assessment of the client's functioning. So a questionnaire on the client's family constellation, which includes parents, siblings, and other family members living in the house, daily duties, and early memories is frequently used by therapists to learn about the client's living style. So this questionnaire, when summed and analyzed, paints a picture of the person's early social environment. So the therapist can get insight into the client's main areas of success and failure, as well as the crucial factors that have affected the role that the client has adopted in the world from his knowledge of the family constellation. So another is the counselor also uses early recollections as an assessment procedure. So these memories are really helpful for understanding the client better. So the therapist lists some of the client's biggest accomplishments and missteps after summarizing and interpreting these early memories. So because they show what clients do and how they think in both adaptive and maladaptive ways, the ERs or the early recollections are particularly helpful as a functional evaluation tool. So if we say early recollections, it is the stories of events that a person says occurred before he or she was 10 years of age. It is something that clients recall along with the feelings and thoughts that accompanied these childhood incidents. And lastly, Mossack and Magnacci of 2011 considered dreams to be a useful part of the assessment process. So Freud assumed that dreams were wish fulfillment or in some instances an attempt to solving an old problem. While to Adler, on the other hand, viewed dreams as a rehearsal for possible future actions. So just as early recollections reflect a client's long-range goals, dreams suggest possible answers to a client's present problems. And we are down to our last slide, which is still under the therapeutic process. So, the first is the client's experience in therapy. Clients in Adlerian counseling focus their work on desired outcomes and a resilient lifestyle that can provide a new blueprint to their actions. Clients explore that what Adlerians call private logic. So if we say private logic, it refers to our convictions and beliefs that conflict with social interests prevent us from feeling useful and constructively belong to. Clients have issues because their private logic-based judgments frequently do not meet the standards of social living. So to provide a concrete example, think of a chronically depressed middle-aged man who begins therapy. Then, after a lifestyle assessment is completed, these basic mistakes are identified. So, first is he has convinced himself that nobody could really care about him. He rejects people before they have a chance to reject him. He is harshly critical of himself, expecting perfection. He has expectations that things will rarely work out well. Lastly, he burdens himself with guilt because he is convinced he is letting everyone down. So it is simple to understand how depression may result from this way of thinking. But Adlerians also understand that the depression is a justification for the man's withdrawal from life. The therapist must pay close attention to this client's behavior in order to understand its underlying motivations. So according to Adlerians, thinking and behavior are both fueled by feelings. We feel, then we think, and finally we act. Since emotions and cognitions have functions, a significant portion of therapy time is devoted to identifying and comprehending these functions as well as reorienting the client toward productive ways of being. So the client will get support from the therapist so that change may occur, since the therapist does not view the client as mentally sick or emotionally disturbed, but rather as primarily discouraged. So the client will learn through the therapeutic process that there are alternatives and resources available to them to help them deal with important life difficulties and duties. Lastly, we have the relationship between therapist and client. So Adlerians consider a good client-therapist relationship to be one between equals, that is based on cooperation, mutual trust, respect, confidence, collaboration, and alignment of goals. So beginning with the first session of therapy, the relationship is one of collaboration in which the two people involved share equal responsibility for achieving predetermined objectives. So a person-to-person relationship and an equitable therapeutic alliance are the goals of Adlerian therapists with their patients. So to get good results, a solid therapeutic connection must be built. So example, insist that at the top or at the start of counseling, clients should start to create a plan or contract outlining what they want, how they plan to get there, what is preventing them from succeeding in achieving their goals, how they can change unproductive behavior into constructive behavior, and how they can fully utilize their resources in achieving their purposes. I think that's all for my report. The other topics will be discussed with my colleague, which is Daniel Balar. And these are my references. Thank you for listening and have a good day, everyone.